So, what I want to talk about today is this book that just came in the mail. It's called A Zombie's History of the United States. You will not believe how deep this gets. You can pause to read, but they had many ways to bury the undead, or you can't really kill them, so they either buried them under a bunch of rocks or stones, or tie them up to a tree in chains, or chain them to a rock in the bottom of the ocean. You know the history about the Mayflower? Zombies were there too. Those working ashore were forced to flee for the Mayflower. There were women, children, and ill had been residing while the settlement was built. The men scrambled, many not stopping to help carry into the water. They just dived into the ocean, swimming for the ship, and the zombies pursued them. Damn. And the women and children watched them. And that's when the pilgrims learned that those bitten by zombies became zombies in due course. Did you know that they thought that George Washington was a hybrid? Pause to read. Okay, so this is a lawyer named John Blackburn. He's a hybrid. In July 1846, he was attacked by a zombie human hybrid. And his family gave him blood trying to hide his, hybridity. Eventually, his brother told on him and sent him to court. But luckily, he was a lawyer. And he said that there was nothing in the American law books that stated being a hybrid was illegal. The trial ended. They had to pay him off, and he even got married to a human. Blackburn was the first hybrid invited to the White House by President Abraham Lincoln. There also had been a rumor that President Abraham Lincoln was a hybrid. Pause to read. So, April 19th, 1874, Blackburn had been subsisting on donated human blood for decades. He experienced a lapse and devoured his second wife, Ava. And he again defended himself in court by defending himself in court. But the jury was not hung, and Blackburn ended his life burnt to a crisp on the courthouse execution pyre. And more hybrids have been revealing themselves after the end of Civil War. In July 2nd, 1861, a lot of people embraced the popular rumor that Abraham Lincoln was a hybrid. In general, human soldiers and officers believed that hybrids lacked the courage to fight well. They feared they might turn on their fellow human soldiers at any moment, so the hybrids were segregated into their own division. Also, did you know that Elizabethtown or Jamestown was it was built to protect against zombie attacks? We're talking about Jamestown, Virginia. Check this out. It says, after encountering some fur traders on the river, Lewis purchased from them some devil's grease, which was made from cooked down zombie fat. According to traders, the grease could be spread on the skin and used as bug repellent. But most of the men were understandably unwilling to rub zombie fat on themselves. Shit, I don't blame you. On July 8th, 4 days after the first Independence Day celebration, the west of the Mississippi, the crew had also their first zombie scare. This is his record. And when I say Lewis, yes, I'm talking about Lewis and Clark. So Lewis ended up getting bit and starts changing, but he did something. He mixed up this elixir that slowed down his process, but it didn't work. It says his heartbeat stopped beating for a full 10 minutes, and he felt no pain. And at first, he thought he was failing to locate his pulse, but eventually, and just as explicitly, his heart began to beat once more. So he says, neither dead nor living. I am, but become something new, something else. God have mercy, what have I done? He was using mandan root to slow down his zombie effect. He says, even the dog has lost all love for me. It growls or barks whenever I'm near. And several times he has bit at me when I move to scratch his head. Okay, so now it gets to the point where Lewis can no longer hold back his need to hunt men. So he said instead of eating his own people, he's going to take one of the Nez Perce Indians. So he shot and killed one of the women who was washing herself off in the stream, and he ate her and left her body. And then the president at that time, Thomas Jefferson, appointed Lewis governor of the Louisiana Territory. So one day, September 6th, Clark decides to break into Lewis's home. And not only did he find and read Lewis's journal, he also found the dungeons containing the remains of countless victims. Clark did not inform the authorities. He did not even tell his Freemason brothers. So October 11th, Clark finally caught up with Lewis. As he opened his door, he at first smiled. Then he realized what motifs must have carried me such a distance, and his smile disappeared. I told him what I knew, and he did not defend. He did not weep nor ask of forgiveness. He said he was relieved that it was over. I said, I must shoot. I know it says shot, but shoot him. And he knew. All he asked was time to write a letter to the president and that I deliver the letter. And I agreed. Lewis dashed off a letter to Jefferson written in a code the two had developed. In case Lewis ever needed to send back important information during the expedition, Jefferson destroyed this letter. So we have no way of knowing precisely what is said, but it is most likely a confession and apology. Upon finishing the letter, Lewis handed it to Clark. Clark then frowned, and he was unable to carry off the deed. He could not pull the trigger against his old friend. And likely sensing this, Lewis then attacked Clark, forcing him to act. So Clark put several shots into Lewis before finally hitting him in the brain. And they just said that Lewis unalived himself. Lewis's and Clark's journal was turned over to Jefferson for editing, and Jefferson advised Clark to resist the urge to continue writing of these secrets, even in his private diaries. From the moment Europeans first encountered zombies, they had attempted to put the creatures in profitable use. So they basically made zombie slaves. Given the high cost in importing and maintaining slaves from Africa, it was inevitable that some enterprising individuals would attempt to use zombies as manual labor. Zombies could not be whipped or given orders, but by placing human bait in front of them, they would struggle forward indefinitely. Zombie slaves were ideal that many plantation owners would intentionally zombinate their African slaves to make. I know you goddamn lying. This is that book.